My project is on how nuclear weapons have changed through the years and the public view on those weapons after certain events have taken place. I am looking over World War II, the Cold War, and present day. World War II to the present day. In World War II, the Allied forces feared that Germans could have created a nuclear bomb. A nuclear bomb is a bomb that used radioactive elements to create a massive explosion, capable of leveling a city and polluting the area with radioactive elements. The Allies overcame engineering challenges and developed the first nuclear device. Canada supplied the uranium in the bomb to the Allies. The scientists wanted to see whether the bomb would actually work. They planned a test deep in the desert. The code name for the test was Trinity, and the first bomb was called the Gadget. It was tested at 5:29 on July 16, 1945. It was a major success. One quote from a person watching the test was a piece from Hindu scripture. If the radiance of 1,000 suns were burst at once into the sky, that would be like the splendor of the Mighty One. The Allies had to make a decision now, because the Germans were defeated, and Japan, the other enemy, did not have a nuclear bomb, and the Allies knew that. They could either launch the bomb or not and possibly lose the war. At this time, from the first test, they knew how much destruction it would cause, but it would also save many Allied lives. They ended up going through with the attack and dropped bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima not long after Japan surrendered to the States. After World War II and the Cold War. After the war had ended, the world knew about nuclear bombs and the power that they had. The views on the bomb were quite positive because it had just won the US the war. The USSR and the States parted ways after the war and became suspicious of each other. The leader of the USSR, Stalin, wanted to influence communism on other countries in Europe and make allied with other communist countries. The USA, being a democracy, did not like this, and tensions grew between the two superpowers. At this point, the Cold War begins. In the past, North Korea had asked China and the USSR to help them make nuclear weapons, and they have been denied each time. The USSR in 1963, however, did agree to help them develop a peaceful nuclear power program. Now that nuclear weapons can be manufactured, both countries began to build nuclear stockpiles. Both countries had so many nuclear weapons that if either country had started a nuclear war, no one would win, because each country had enough weapons to destroy each other. This theory is called mutually assured destruction. This stalemate continued on until the end of the Cold War. During the Cold War, Canada staged nuclear weapons for the US in Canada. They had 4 launch systems and hundreds of warheads. The major turning point in the Cold War was the view people had on nuclear weapons. People went from being positive about them to being very scared that there would be a nuclear war and that this could mean that the end of the world. The closest that there ever came to a country firing on each other was during the Cuban Missile Crisis. This was where the USSR tried to put nuclear weapons in Cuba. This was dangerously close to the United States. The missiles could reach ground on the USA from Cuba. This is the height of the fear of nuclear weapons. This is probably the closest to nuclear war that the world has ever experienced. When the Cuban Missile Crisis was over, the USA and the USSR decided to begin to sign peace treaties and start to disarm their nuclear weapons. This is a positive for the world because it meant there was less nuclear weapons that can be used. This also is the start of peace between these nations. The fear of nuclear weapons was decreasing with the peace talks. By 1984, Canada did not possess any nuclear weapons. This was because they did not want to be part of the Cold War. The Cold War officially ended in 1991. This was also the year when the Soviet Union broke apart and became what is now Russia. Countries began breaking away from the USSR prior to 1991, and more countries were becoming democracies. The present day. Currently, the USA and Russia still have nuclear stockpiles. Canada does not have any nuclear weapons. Today, more countries possess nuclear weapons, most of whom are our allies. Other states in the world do own nuclear weapons that are not allies with us, though. These are India, Pakistan, and the most worrying of them all is North Korea. North Korea is a country run by a dictator named Kim Jong-un. North Korea has conducted 7 nuclear tests starting from 2006. Most of these tests have been around the size of the Trinity bomb test, which is very small compared to modern-day nuclear weapons. North Korea poses a threat to South Korea and Japan, but does not pose a real threat to North America for a few reasons. One, because if they do try to attack, the stockpiles that the US and Britain have are so much larger, so it would be suicide for them to attack. Number two is that, to our knowledge today, they do not have a delivery system that can reach the West. Japan and North Korea, though, are still at risk. Nuclear weapons have changed since the first development. The first is the size of the weapons themselves. The first gadget produced a blast of 18.6 kilotons of TNT. This is a far cry from the biggest bomb ever detonated on Earth, which was by the USSR in 1961. This was called the Tsar Bomba, and it produced a blast of 50 megatons, which is equal to 50,000 kilotons. The second thing that has changed is how nuclear bombs are deployed. The bombs dropped in Japan were dropped from a plane and detonated above the cities. Now we have missiles and guidance systems called intercontinental ballistic missiles, or ICBMs for short. These missiles can travel at speeds of 7 kilometers a second. These missiles carry nuclear warheads to its destination. There are also nuclear warheads on submarines in the ocean. They carry ICBMs on them if they need to be fired. For me, the turning point in the present day is the way that we deliver the nuclear weapons. We went from needing planes that move slowly compared to the missiles that carry the warheads today. Now it could make nuclear war a lot more possible just for how easy it is. But mutually assured destruction would hopefully deter this from happening. These weapons are not ethical at all. There is immense power in these weapons. These weapons can level an entire city. These weapons leave behind radioactive particles that can make a place uninhabitable for many years. People that were not killed by the bombs in Japan were lucky, but many of them got cancer or some other disease from the radiation left behind. If enough bombs were launched in the world, we could go into nuclear winter. It is where the blast from all the bombs lift up lots of radioactive sooty gas and dust. The sun cannot get through the atmosphere, and the plants cannot grow. There would be worldwide food shortages and chaos. If this scenario played out, there is no winner in the war. The world would lose. I think that the development of nuclear weapons has had a negative effect in society. They have put more fear into the world, so much that countries will pour billions of dollars and making their stockpiles larger. I think that nuclear science is a positive for humanity. We can get lots of power from a few grams of uranium. We might even explore space with nuclear-powered space shuttles one day. These weapons can also kill many innocent people, where the only goal is to scare people so much into making them surrender. This is true because it scared the Japanese so much because they could not defend against these weapons, and they surrendered a few days later. And the picture on the left is Hiroshima before the bomb, and the picture on the right is Hiroshima after the bomb. I do think that there is a silver lining in nuclear weapons. They do strike fear into people, and for good reason. They should terrify the people that have control over them. It will definitely make countries think twice about war, because then the threat of nuclear war is there. There is a war in Syria that does not involve nuclear weapons, so it does not stop all wars from happening. But trying to start a war between superpowers is not as likely, because if a nuclear war is started, then neither side will win, since both are destroyed from all the bombs that are launched. This is an awful thought to have in our minds, but maybe it's there for a good reason. That image of nuclear winter and chaos can serve as a deterrent to war and prompt us to make changes around our laws with nuclear technology.